promise you, I have lost more money in one day than most people make in a lifetime.
Today, we're talking about real stories, real setbacks, real comebacks with our dollars. We are chasing millions today. Now we got a $125,000 excavator that is completely mangled.
It's okay to be pissed. Put your big boy pants back on and you gotta go back to work. So let's talk about some setbacks and some real stories of has been major setbacks.
God, we have a bunch of them.
I got one on day one in my first week of my entrepreneurship.
Oh, I got to hear this one.
All
I don't know if I
in.
ever heard that one.
All in. Borrowed $5,000. You heard the story 1,000 times. Went to the bank, borrowed some money, bought used porta potties, ran the company off my dad's farm in a little small town called Hominy, Oklahoma. My dad was nice enough to allow me to operate a porta potty business out of his barn, right? The reason why I got into the porta potty business, my brother was in the oil and gas business, and they were renting porta potties, and I was broke, and I was trying to find a way to make extra money, and my brother's like, well, hell. I was like, what's something I can do for you? I had my CDL, and I was doing hot shots and stuff like that, but I was like, what is something I can do for me to make more than what you're going to be paying me by the hour? So that's why I have my CDL, by the way. I was working for my brother. So, long story short, I started this porta potty business. He's like, we rent out porta potties. Like, porta potties? I'm out on that. I'm out on that shit, literally. And
The pooper guy.
yeah, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go do this. So I got in the porta potty business, and my brother had this big contract coming up, and needed 60 something toilets, like 56 toilets, and I bought 60 something. Had a little extra, and I was like, by the math of this, I'm going to make a lot of money because there was oil boom going on in Oklahoma, and I was renting out toilets for like $15 a day.
That's a lot.
Right?
Yeah.
And I placed all these toilets out there. And by the way, oil and gas is net pay 60, net pay 90 from the time of approval of invoice.
They drag you out.
They drag you out. So you're getting paid once a quarter for every time you submit an invoice. It's horrible. So I put all these porta potties out there. My brother didn't really tell me the whole story, that they were already having troubles with the contractor, and I wasn't, and I don't think he knew the whole story himself, like what was going to happen to him, but put all these porta potties out there, run it for 2-3 weeks, and guess what happens? They kick him and every one of his subs off the contract. So I'm sitting here, I know he doesn't want to make the phone call. He calls me and is like, hey man, we lost the contract, and you're going to pick up your shit. And I was like, I started this on a shoestring budget. I have nowhere to go with all these toilets. I don't know anything about the toilets, and I was going to learn by servicing you.
Oh,
so
terrible.
That's a real story, a real challenge, a real God. This isn't probably meant for me at the very first week, but I think it was just one of those deals. And I had to look myself in the mirror and I said, "Are you going to give up or not?" And I didn't. And now we could talk about later on some real comebacks, but that's my first real story of some major barriers I had to overcome in the very early part of my entrepreneurship career. What about you?
Well, just a second.
I'll tell you another real story I had. It's funny how things work out for a reason, right? So I didn't know how to operate my truck. I learned it the hard way, and this guy that knew my dad through church was like, hey, there's this guy. He doesn't go to church here, but he's looking for some work. So I called the guy. I couldn't even afford labor at the time. I just need really somebody to help. You know what I mean? Just do stupid things. And I was, I guess he was my first employee, but his name was Mark Poshpachek. And he would look like a Mark Poshpachek. And I pick him up, and he looked like the guy from, what's that movie? The guy that lives underneath the bridge, Dennis the Menace. He looks like the guy off Dennis the Menace, the guy that lived underneath the bridge, the scary guy. He shows up, and his hair's going everywhere. So the first day I go get in the toilet truck with him, and we go out there, and we're dumping the waste, and he's helping me and stuff. And I open the door, and the toilet door is clogged. And he was like, I was like, so what do we do? He's like, put back pressure on it and we'll blow it out. Well, that didn't work. You know what this guy does?
Stick his hand up in there?
He sticks his hand up in this freaking tube.
Oh.
Grabs whatever he can grab and pulls it out. And the sucker starts flowing.
With his arm in there.
With his arm in there. So it's squirting all over him. He gets a water hose on the truck and squirts it off.
Like
Gets
nothing ever
back in my
happened.
truck and like nothing ever happened.
Eating a sandwich.
I was like, that guy's a tough son of a bitch.
So, one thing I think needs to be said is that resilience as a business owner, if you're getting ready to be a business owner or you are a business owner, you should know this or you're already living this, is resilience is going to become second nature, right? Because through the years, and we're about to bring up some of them, but all we do, it seems like, is you get setbacks on the daily basis. And you have to be one resilient son of a gun, because you're going to have one problem after another problem. Lost 100,000 here, maybe lost $1 million here, and you got to smile and keep on and figure out solutions and just be, what is the word you always say? Teflon tape. And stuff's just got to bounce off of you too, right? The problems have to bounce off of you. You cannot get discouraged. You have to be resilient, and you're going to learn if you don't already know. So let me give you a couple stories, Josh, that you're probably going to remember. Is that talk about real dollars lost, right? We got underbid on one of our first contracts we ever did. I had for 3 or 4 years, 5 years. We got underbid here recently. And how much did you lose personally that day?
Like $8 million.
$8 million. Ouch. I lost millions in about a 30-minute meeting.
Yeah.
So
now, granted, if you watch our previous episode, we talk about cash versus worth, net worth versus equity. I didn't lose $8 million in cash. I lost $8 million in net worth. What that cash brought value to my company.
Correct.
It was millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in revenue. But, that day was a bad day. I was about to get on my ski slope with my kids, and Eric had that sound in his voice. And I was goofy. I was on vacation, having a good time, about to get down on a ski slope. And he said, "You might want to sit down for this one. I'm about to ruin your day."
Oh, I remember.
And Ashley doesn't see that look in my face very often. I was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah. So,
but you know what?
But that was 3.5. I mean, no, let's not sugarcoat this. It was $8 million in equity. He didn't physically touch that, but we lost $3.5-4 million in true revenue that comes in on a year in, year out basis.
High margin.
Yeah, high margin in 30 minutes. And then we got to hear that information, dissect it, figure out how do you move forward from that. So be thinking that that's an extreme example. And I'm going to give you some other smaller ones. But
well, I mean, you had to fire employees. You had to go down the whole deal and change up insurance and change up this and get rid of equipment. You have to make all those decisions so fast because it could be so detrimental to your business if you're not willing to make the tough decision as a leader. Because if you hold on to all these employees too much longer, you have to pay their payroll, and it could be a really bad thing for your business and affect more people than it really needs to affect. And at the end of the day, we were just upfront and honest with them, and a lot of them found jobs within the same plan or, with our competitor. And we were okay with that.
Yeah.
But that was a big setback.
It was a huge setback, right? And you got to take those, and you got to figure out how you're going to move forward from there. And that's obviously not the only one that we've had. And you, like I've been saying, you got to be resilient. I'll tell you another one. We look back now and they're funny, but the reality is that they're not really funny. They weren't at the time. I'm in the deer stand, and I don't know what the heck's going on. I'm starting to get phone calls. You had seen a wreck on the side of the road where an excavator hit a bridge. And he was probably passing and going pretty fast. And I was like, oh, that was a bad day for that person, right?
I was in a hurry, and you were calling me. I was on the phone with somebody, and you were texting me or something because you were in deer stand.
Yeah.
And I was in a hurry to go to a football game with my son, and I see the freaking truck on the side of the road. I was like, man, that sucks for that company. I finally make it to my house or close to, and I get you were calling me over and over again. You're out of the deer stand, and we hit a bridge. Yeah. One of our excavators, they left the boom up going 60 miles an hour down the road. Hits a freaking bridge.
And to boot, of course, the person that we had put in charge at that particular division that we had going, he made a very minute mistake here in that he did not insure the excavator. So now we got $125,000 excavator that is completely mangled.
We sold for $9,500 the other day.
Yeah, that was like $9,500 we sold, and I'm surprised
With no
we got
insurance.
Yeah, so we took $110,000 loss, probably more than that, in like just a split second. And you got to take those, and you just got to take them in stride.
Hey, and it's okay. You're gonna have, as an entrepreneur, you're gonna have setbacks. Yeah. It's okay to be internally pissed. Like when we got that call on the excavator, and then I got the call there, a few months ago while I was snow skiing. It's okay to be pissed. You're going to be pissed. You're going to ask a lot of yourself internal questions. What did I do wrong? Was there a service? The guy not like me? What happened? It's okay to be pissed. But then you got to put your big boy pants back on, and you got to go back to work.
Yeah.
You can't be pissed very long. You got to process it, figure out what you did right or wrong, figure out what you can change going forward, figure out how to make changes so that doesn't happen going forward, and then you got to get refocused and home back in, and let's go.
Yeah, I mean, in the short term,
you get me all pumped up now because when you come back from a loss like that and you come back faster than you anticipated, you're like, we're pretty resilient. Our team's pretty badass.
Yeah,
let's freaking go, dude.
And that's
I'm about to go start selling some porta potties right now.
Yeah,
you're getting pumped up.
He says that, and then I will be out there selling porta potties. That's the reality of it. So. A lot of these negative things that we're talking about are real life stories. They are all real life stories. And, to caveat the biggest one that we just talked about, where we lost, $3.5 million revenue, millions upon millions of equity in a split second. The positive of that is if you can take that information, learn from it very quickly, which we had to do, make adjustments, and we are further. And that was what? That was only, what are we in May? That was only from last February. So it's been 4 months, and we are already over and above where we were at with that contract.
Well, here's another thing, too. Like, I think the reason why I have been so successful, and I see it in yourself, too, and many other leaders that we have around us, is you're going to face setbacks. As an entrepreneur, you know it's coming your way. And if you don't know it's coming your way and you're thinking about starting a business, you need to get a program. It's coming your way. Like, get programmed. Yeah. Don't be naive and stupid. You're going to have major setbacks. You're going to have major failures. Some of them are going to be due to you, and some are going to be due to things that are out of your control, right? Yeah. But it's how you deal with them. It's not only how you deal with setbacks, how you deal with wins, too. There's a lot of wins that people have that make a lot of money, and it changes who they are. It changes how they treat people. It changes a lot of things. Yeah. So how do you deal with setbacks? I don't yell and scream at Eric and say, you're da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't yell at my team. I process it. I work with them. I let them know I have their back. If they, if it was an honest mistake, even if it wasn't, it was just a mistake. People make mistakes. And then we move forward. I don't let it get me down for too long of a period. I don't start doing the blame game. I might, figure out whose fault it was and figure out why they made the decision they did, because I might learn something too. But I don't go down all these weird paths and dwell on it forever. I don't have time for that. I have a setback to overcome. Now I got to figure out where I'm at with that setback, and now I got to figure out how to get back to square zero where I was, and then go above and beyond that, because we will go above and beyond that.
Yeah, and the part to that is you have to do that every time, and then you have to basically use your team around you, right, and figure out what went wrong, figure out how to fix it, and then motivate those guys, because a lot of times what happens is people get pretty demotivated, especially when you have we had a large contract like that disappeared. People start asking questions. We're like, well, that was a 20% of your business, right? Are we going to have a job, right? So not only is it tough on you, you got to figure out how to fix it, but you got to figure out how to keep the momentum going forward and keep pushing people forward, right, with positivity and ensuring them that, this it's going to be all right. It's just a blip in our system, right? And sometimes in the back of your head, you're like, oh, shit.
And setbacks, we always talk about business on here because this is a world we live and eat and breathe in every single day. It's really the only thing we do. We have all these toys, but we really don't use them. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't think most entrepreneurs do. Like, ones that are grinding and still trying to make it, they buy all these things, they have these things they want, but I really don't think they use them as much as they anticipate because they're too busy playing the game. But point is, you're going to have all these setbacks. You're going to have setbacks personally, too, in this ride called entrepreneurship. There's a lot of personal setbacks, friendships I've lost, family and moments and friendships and relations I've lost. Time with my kids, time with my wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Things I've had to miss probably I shouldn't have missed that were important to them and important to me to be there. There's going to be setbacks in the relationships by you taking this path. Don't be naive and stupid, what I always say. Come in this thing and don't think it's going to change those personal relationships. It will change them. Not because you want them to, because that's what most of the time has to happen to be successful on a large level. You have to be radically committed. You know what I mean? Because you're going to have setbacks, and you're going to have to walk in your wife and kiss her on her forehead, or walk in there around your parents when I was sitting in that ski room and Erik breaks this bad news, and I will promise you one thing, I walked out of there with my ski gear on and I went on that mountain and act like nothing happened. I didn't even want to, and all I could think about is that's 3 to 4 years of net worth setback, you know what I mean? But then I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to let it bring me down to that level at this point in time. I'm going to say, hey, look, we're going to overcome this. I have a goal. We're going to have bigger setbacks than this. I have $100 million net worth goal. Everybody around me knows that. I'm not afraid to say that. I'm not trying to say that sound arrogant. It's a realistic goal that I can hit in a realistic time frame, and I'm going to have major setbacks. I already put that in my little head. I'm not stupid. I know. And this one might be, 8 million plus, and that next one might be 20.
Well, they say, right? I think Alex Hormozy was talking about this too, is that, the more money you make, the bigger your setbacks, the bigger dollar figures setbacks are going to be, right? And you just got to be resilient, like we've been saying, and take those L's when they come, overcome them, be resilient, move forward in a positive way. And
be humble. There's many a times our setbacks is because my dumbass can't make the right decision. I made the wrong decision, and it's affected some people that had no say in it.
Yeah.
You have to be humble enough and tell your team sometimes and be like, hey, look, tell your wife, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your kids. There's been many a times I've had setbacks from decisions I've made as a leader in all those situations, and I had to be eat a little slice of humble pie and be like, you know what, I was wrong. I made the wrong decision. I know what I need to do now, and hopefully you can look past that and let's move forward.
So speaking of losses, and this one was out of my control, and we have it on video, and I can laugh about it now because
it's still your steaks.
I hope it never. That's a different one. We'll talk about that one too. That was a great one. But this one is nobody got hurt. So I know it sounds kind of bad, but nobody got hurt. Thank the Lord. But we had a driver that rolled over one of our roll-off trucks and completely just annihilated it. And we'd never have anything like that. And I hope nothing ever happens like that again, or to anybody else that's in this business, because it can be very, very deadly if a roll-off truck and trailer rolls over. But to make light of the situation, we lost a lot of money, but we have rear-facing and forward-facing cameras, okay? And we put it in slow motion. And this guy, it was about 5:15, 5:30 on a Friday. And obviously, the only thing I can kind of come up with is he was in a hurry to get home, right? He was tired of working. He's ready to get home. And he took a turn going about 40 to 45 miles an hour, a right 90-degree turn to get on a highway. And we put it in slow-mo, and he's turning over, and then you see this truck going over, and he's like, oh, shit. It just annihilates him down on the side of that truck. He had a seatbelt on, but it guarantee you it just knocked the daylights out of him.
Knocked the daylights. You guys had to bring skid steers out there to pick all that crap up. Highway patrol, shut down highways.
Oh, I got texts from people.
Everybody was calling you saying, look what happened.
Jesus. And this is on Friday again. And I'm in there.
They always happen on Friday, bro.
Yeah, I'm in there in the office, doing my last little walk around, just happy-go-lucky, and then I see one of the roll-up managers like, you're shitting me. No. I'm like, oh, fuck.
Well, this is why I haven't quit drinking. That's how I deal with my setbacks.
Yeah.
I haven't had drinking 3 weeks, but I damn sure want one.
Good for you.
When's the last time you had a drink?
It's been a while. Like I said, I had a couple when I was down there in Colorado with you guys when we flew.
Oh, yeah, like a beer or something.
Yeah, it wasn't that much, but yeah, I had a couple drinks. But a couple years, really, since I really drank heavily. So
finish this up. Let's talk.
There's one more because it's funny. So it very minimal amount of money, but it's just funny because it still goes around.
Well, minimal to you, but how big of a setback was it for him?
Oh, it was a huge setback for this guy because to make matters worse, I had to fire a guy that is nicknamed now and probably forever is the Steak Bandit. Okay, anybody who knows us, we give back to our people. Man, we are culture driven, and we'll give the shirt off our back if somebody needs it. So the fact that this happens, it just really pisses me off. Because if the individual was going to ask me for the steaks, I would have gave it to him and not thought twice. But we got this guy on video, and one of our partners at that time, who's no longer a partner now, he was known for grilling up a bunch of stuff, and he went and got a bunch of steaks, and all of a sudden some steaks come up missing, and a couple of days go by.
No, it's on a Friday. This happened on Friday.
Was it?
Yeah, because he put the steaks in the freezer. He goes on Friday because he's going to go grill them out for him and his girlfriend, and the steaks are gone.
That's what it is. Okay, yeah. And long story short, he goes around, and we're trying to figure out where the hell these steaks went. And this individual was asked multiple times, "Hey, do you have any idea what happened to the steaks?" Right? And he's like, "No, but I'll be asking around. I'll be figuring out who stole them." And he didn't even think that we have cameras everywhere, right? And we got him taking these.
No, it gets better. You're missing these stories, dude. You're missing the highlights.
Yeah,
Learn how to tell a story, bro.
What I missed? You tell a story then.
He leaves on Friday. The steaks are no longer there. He doesn't have access to the camera. So he starts walking around the office saying, "Hey, man, did you take my steaks? Take my steaks." He went to this individual and asked that same question. But he was asking everybody that. "Did you take my steaks?" He's like, "Oh, no, I didn't take your steaks." Well, he doesn't have access to the camera, so he knows somebody stole these steaks. He's pissed, right? Comes around, Terry looks at the footage of the camera, but the whole entire time Terry didn't find out who it was. Like, as they were watching the video, they all were like, "Oh man, he stole these steaks," right? Because he got asked. He was in that room day. The guy walks in while they're reviewing the footage. Like, right when they got done, they figured out who did it. That guy walks in like 2 minutes later while they're still
I never heard that part of it.
It was like, "Man, hey, did you guys catch that Steak Bandit?"
No way.
You ever heard this?
I didn't hear that part of it.
And they were looking at each other, and Terry and Thomas, Terry was like, "We know it's you. You just walked in here and asked us if we caught," and he named himself. That's why he has the name Steak Bandit, because he walked in there as they just found out that he stole the steaks and asked Terry and Thomas if they had caught the Steak Bandit.
Oh,
that guy
Lord.
did. And they were like looking at him like, are you joking? You could just see Thomas's face. Like, because it shows him, he grabs the steaks. We'd have given him those steaks, we would just ask, guarantee it. And he puts the steaks in his coat. Yeah, under his shirt.
Yeah, under his shirt.
And walks out like a lump of steaks. We have him on camera.
You can't make this shit up.
So that was a setback for that guy way more than it was a setback for us because we actually liked the guy.
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff for us. Like I said, it's not like we replaced and moved on, right? But for him, that had to have been a pretty big setback, right? Because we paid him really well, and he had a home, and he was going to be here forever. You know what I mean? Because Terry, the unfortunate thing was my COO. It was a guy that he recommended,
and he was good friends with.
And it was just a terrible situation, right? I'm making light of it, but I had to fire him too, and that was kind of an ugly deal. But yeah, so little setbacks, big setbacks. We have been no stranger to setbacks, and anybody who has a business or looking to start a business, get ready.
What do we always say? You don't lose until you give up. You're going to have setbacks. Get it in your mind. You're going to have a lot of wins too. Get that in your mind. So don't really set back and just relax on any of those situations. Don't sit there and just think about your losses all the time. Don't sit there and think about your wins all the time. Just keep on working. You're going to have both of them as you get bigger. And they're going to be bigger. They're going to be more frequent. I mean, one time we were shooting a podcast, not to get off rumbling again. Remember that one time we had a big setback? And then we had to come in here and shoot a podcast. And all of our people were out there. And we had to come in here and shoot this podcast. What was that setback?
That was my very first day here.
Yeah.
Oh.
What was that?
Somebody stole from you.
Yeah.
There's some piece of equipment down there that was worth like thousands of dollars, I think.
Oh, I don't remember.
Out of a trailer or something.
Oh.
Yeah, I remember we had...
It was sad, is it?
It was like a computer system or something.
We have so many people that stole from us that we can't even remember them all.
Oh, I
have so
have
many setbacks from people stealing from us. That we literally can't keep it all
We had
straight
to
in our
not
head.
go to somebody's wedding the other day because we caught him stealing fuel.
Yeah, I remember that one. That was a hard one because
That was just a few weeks. I mean, I probably had like 15 people steal from me this year.
oh no, it's just crazy, man.
I mean, I have a guy right now that worked for me for 3 years. We just filed charges on him.
remember that. Yeah.
And he worked for my competitor. We were going to let it go and just like, hey, we don't have time to mess with this. And then he sends us a cease and desist letter. All right, for marketing material he doesn't even own because his face is on it. And I was like, you signed a deal that we have the right to use your face and stuff in this. Sends a cease and desist letter now. We're going to have to, he's going to get a bag of shit this week or next from a DA from getting federal charges filed on him for grand larceny. Could you imagine that situation?
Very bad.
You know? So you're going to have setbacks. You're also going to have a lot of wins. Talk about your wins. We always talk about we actually don't talk about the wins as much as we should probably.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're actually better at that than I am.
I don't know about that.
Because sometimes you're like, man, sometimes I sit back and I'm like seeing where we come. I'm like, I have too much ADD in me. I don't sit back and think about anything of that detail that long. You know what I mean?
I will say this is that I rarely do, to be honest. And I did it the other day, and I told you that story where I was walking between a couple of our buildings.
Oh, that's when you were telling me that.
Yeah.
That's what I was referring
And
to.
I'm trying to I don't know, that kind of hit me. And you know what I mean? I don't know if it's ever happened to you, or anybody who's watching, but I came a long ways. And if you watched the podcast before this one, him and I both have very humble beginnings. And I have sacrificed a lot to get to where I'm at. And I was walking between these buildings, and I don't know, it just kind of hit me where I was like, I turned around, I looked around at all the stuff I own, and I was like, damn, how'd that happen so fast?
I feel slow at the time, still does.
Yeah. So, anyways, to wrap this up, right? You're going to have a lot of major setbacks.
My grandpa always says, the only place you start on top is what?
I don't remember that one.
Digging a hole. That's what he always says,
I remember you
son.
say that, yeah.
The only person that starts on top is the person digging the hole. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Pop.
it does. So to wrap this up, you got to be a little crazy to be in business. You're going to get faced with a lot of adversity, a lot of challenges, and like Josh and I, you will probably lose a lot of money. But the difference between people who make it and people who don't is the people who are resilient, the people who will put their game face back on, not let everybody see whenever you have bad things happen. Because when you get to the level where I'm at and where Josh is at, sometimes those happen every day. And you have to be able to take that information, let it bounce off you, understand what happened, fix what happened, move positive move in a positive direction quickly, because you're likely working on something when you're already working on a couple of things. When that kind of stuff hits you, then you have to take a pause for a second, figure it out, fix it, put your game face back on, go back to what you're doing like it's any other day.
Dude, and not to drag this out even further, but you just made the best point on this whole podcast episode.
What do you mean?
When these problems hit you, it's not like you're sitting there waiting for them to come your way. You know what I mean? Like, they hit you like a sack of rocks in the face.
Yeah.
With thorns in them. You know what I mean? And they hurt. It's like walking on rocks barefoot. Nobody likes that. You know what I mean? And
Fair.
When you're sitting there and you're so hyper-focused and things are going your way and you just get hit.
Yeah.
And you
That's
just...
exactly what happens, too.
And then you're like, God, dang. Sometimes you have to take a breather, and sometimes you got to... Sometimes you're like, okay, it's not big enough. That's not even... It's funny, like, some things I would have got worked up over 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't even get worked up over now.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, that's not going to ruin my day. Let me finish what I'm doing. I'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah.
But I would have been on my chair figuring that out real quick.
Yeah,
About 7 years ago.
I know exactly what you mean.
But be prepared. It's never going to hit you when you want it to hit you. And they always come in 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s.
12s and 15s. And
yeah. So
thanks for watching. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.